Okay, I hope everyone had a nice Hanukkah and was able to connect to the enormous amount of R that existed on Hanukkah and can continue to leak through the rest of the year as we continue this dark and cold period of time. I know the month of Teves has its own limitations, strengths and weaknesses. In the middle of Gedalia Fenster's Chabura, or I should say Shir, on Teves, which is my birthday month, but also a month of a lot of intensity, and wishing everyone a good Chodesh and a good Yar. So we finished off last Chabura of Chovas Hatalmidim on page 97, and what we had spent time talking about is the midah of laziness and the opportunity to fix it. And so for some, laziness is a machla that affects people around them, affects their parenting, affects their employment, it affects their friendships, and it's very hard for them to connect in a deep and meaningful way because they are ultimately struggling with the wherewithal to move from a static position to one of activity. And he had mentioned in Chovas Hatalmidim that a conscientious person is one who has the essence of being an achiever. So someone who is highly focused on making sure that they're going from place A to place B with a sense of energy, a sense of focus, a sense of presence, and that he seeks out opportunities to be useful. So as he continues his mission and giving advice to a Talmud, which again, we are all Talmidim trying to connect deeply to our Maker, he is able to relate the guidance and the way to administer that guidance so that we as quote-unquote Talmidim, and the Talmidim that he issued these teachings to, can grow from. And so we'll continue with page 97, Chovas Hatalmidim, talking about the challenges of laziness, lethargy, and how to cure them. So it says at the bottom of the page of 97, therefore, Jewish lad, if you care about yourself and about the years of your life, from now until old age, banish laziness from within you, and uproot and destroy that rotten trait of lethargy. Stimulate yourself so that you become a diligent person. However, don't act hurriedly like hasty people do, because even in their hurry, they are actually lethargic. Generally speaking, their actions are superficial in nature, lacking any kind of depth and avoda that the whole body and soul can fully involve themselves in. Everyone knows who's been part of this Chabura, and the Bavavi Mishkanevna Chabura, that learning how to show up fully in our Kedusha, in our Avoda, in our Hishtadlus, in our marriages, in our parenting, to be able to fully be present is something that many people struggle with. He says it right here, that when you move too quick and you don't give yourself the opportunity to achieve depth in whatever that Avoda is in the given time, the whole body and soul can't involve itself in what it's meant to do. You can't fully be where you are with presence of mind and serenity of heart if your mind is checking your phone every 5 seconds, if you're distracted, if you're rushing through tefillah, if you're rushing through tasks at work, if you're rushing through speaking to your wife, if you're rushing through listening to a friend in need, if you're rushing through giving tzedakah to the masholach. Everything needs to be done at a pace that allows you to show up fully. We trick ourselves in thinking that if we do hishtadlus quicker, we can get more hishtadlus done, and it'll give us more of what we want, when it ends up being the exact opposite. When we can show up in a mindful, peaceful, present, and serene way, we're able to take things as they come, one at a time, because that's all we can do. All we have right now is the present moment. All we have right now is Achshav at 8:08 p.m. and however many seconds, and now that's gone. And now we're in the next moment, and in the next moment. Our mind wants to continue tricking us. And it's all over Torah. I just posted this on my status. Rav Daniel Katz talks about how Yidden, it was all Yidden who came up with mindfulness, meditation, connection, and most of them got it from, quote unquote, the East, the yogis of the world, the Buddhists of the world. But where did they ultimately get it from? To take it all the way back, Avram Avinu actually sent out other people. I don't remember if it was children or I forgot who it was exactly. But Avram Avinu sent family out to the east, and they say that Avram Avinu was the one who was actually teaching presence of mind. That's how he was able to stay so present with everybody, and that he ultimately was the initial person who had taught all these people the practices of how to control the thinking and the practices of how to show up fully for people and for Hashem and for their connection to their higher power. And then ultimately that trickled down into what Buddhists have now. The difference between a Buddhist and a frum person with mindfulness is really one thing. Buddhists are disconnected from everything, and they're chasing serenity over everything. So if you ask a Buddhist, are you happy? The Buddhist will most likely respond, I'm not chasing happiness, I'm chasing peace. For a Yid, we also are chasing peace. But what's the difference? Simcha's a goal. Attachment to our Creator is a goal. They believe that there shouldn't be any attachment. And so for someone like me who has read a lot of those works, okay, they're all right behind me, there's always this missing piece of, as Yidden, we don't want to be attached to the things we're not supposed to be attached to, which is everything besides Ein Od Milvadoi. But if we can be attached to Ein Od Milvadoi, and we can constantly go back to that place of Ein Od Milvadoi throughout our day, with frequency, through his baininess and his baidinus and talking to Hashem and meditation and mindfulness and tefillah and learning and all the different brachas. I mean, brachas are the biggest gift for mindfulness. It allows us the opportunity multiple times, and depending how fat you are, many, many times a day, to be able to connect to our Creator in a way that ultimately gives people, like us, the advantage to, religiously connect, inspire, and grow. And so the main difference that we find with all of these different schools of thought is that we believe we should be attached to our Creator, and they believe they shouldn't. The reason I bring that up is because we see right here, the Piazetzner talks about how if we try to show up with too much speed, we'll never get anything done, and we won't be able to show up with our entire guf and neshama in anything that we do. And so you'll say, Avishai, it's very, very difficult to be present most of the day and to connect in a very deep way. And I'll say to you 100%. But there's moments in our day where we can regulate. And it's all about regulating. We are dysregulated as a hamoinam. Jew, non-Jew, doesn't matter. We're all completely irregulated because of the device that I'm recording the shir on. Because of the ability for people to reach us, not in one way, but in 10 ways. Every social media has a messenger. We have WhatsApp, we have iChat, we have phone, we have voice notes, we have LinkedIn, we have, as I mentioned, all the social, we have a million different ways people get in touch with us, which we were not created or meant to be equipped for, because that's not the reality. That's not what we should be having to survive through. That's the machla. Yes, the secondary machlas to everything coming out of device, whether it's porn or it's addiction or it's other challenges that we have, those of course are things that come from it, but it's the device itself that causes us the struggles that we have and the lifestyle we have to live, which is this constant needing to go from stimuli to consistently be a person who is needing some sort of reaction or emotion or activity in order to feel whole. So what he's saying here is, generally speaking, even the people who are doers are also lacking in nature because they can't involve their entire mahus into what they're doing. Be deliberate, yet diligent, with effort and alacrity. And since we have already mentioned that you are the one who bears the principal responsibility for educating yourself, we will now explain a bit more of the mental and physical differences between a diligent person and a lethargic one, so that you will be able to know how and through which means you rid yourself of your lethargy in everything you do, and to change yourself into a diligent person. All of a person's activities, whether physical or mental, are affected by the neshama. We need to clarify that for those of us that can easily get tripped up and confused. We're in a simulation. We're in this Olam Haza, which is a long stop on a bus, waiting to get to the final place, which is Olam Haba. I think we all believe that, who was on this, and who is listening to this afterwards. And yet we take the simulation completely and utterly serious, which is chaos. How many times in your life have you had to go from one place to another, and in between there are different stops? Do those stops deserve all the attention, or is it just a means to get to the destination you're trying to get to? So let's first establish that we take this world way too seriously. Kal v'chomer, the people that, can't help themselves but to flex and brag and be obsessed with financial success and with materialistic success. And we all have pieces of this. I'm no different. I'm just saying that I'm laughing at myself. But there are people who mamish, that's what they live for. And we said a couple shiurim ago that they're in the game. They are literally mice in a game. And the people who are living neshama-dika lives, who are living above the game, are looking down at them and laughing and saying nebuch. They're literally chasing their tail on things that they will never take with them. They are literally investing fully. Think about I'm driving from here to New York. They're at the rest stop and they won't leave. I got to get to New York for the wedding. But they can't get there. They can't do what it takes to get to New York for the wedding. So they're stuck. They're stuck at the rest stop, and they're checking out everything at the rest stop as if everything at the rest stop is literally the end-all be-all of their lives. We live like that every single day. We get to work, things don't go our way, we get upset. We go home, things don't go our way, we get perturbed. We don't have enough money in the bank, we deal with debt, we deal with challenges, we deal with finances, we get upset and in the way. All of that, none of that is coming with us. None of it, zero. There's not one thing you can name me that's outside of what's in my neshama that's actually going to come with me. And yet we take it extremely, extremely seriously. So what is he saying here? He's saying all the person's activities, whether physical or mental, are affected by the neshama, which manifests itself in the brain, which we know, the nefesh elokis is in the brain, and the heart, nefesh elokis and the nefesh bahamis on both sides of the heart, different places, as well as in the rest of the body. The brain has many parts, and when the soul manifests itself in the brain, all those parts awaken and stand ready to accomplish a single task, namely to understand that which it is concentrating on. A single catch. One thing at a time. We can only show up al pi our neshama in a present avodadik way, connected to Hashem through devekus, if we're able to show up with serenity. And this is, again, very difficult because we live in a world of unconsciousness. It's not our parents' fault, it's not our friends' fault, it's not our rabbi's fault, it's not anyone else's fault. We live in a world of distraction to distraction. And of course, Baruch Hashem, we have Torah. So good Yidden that are practicing the Avodah and learning Torah and connecting deeply to the beautiful opportunity we have as Yidden, they're less unconscious. But there's still a level of unconscious of going from thing to thing and want to want and taiva to taiva, whether they're not kosher or not kosher. They still remain taivas. They still remain futile. They still are not going to be things we're going to take with us. The only thing we're going to take with us, the only thing we're going to leave here, is the impression we make on the people that are here after us, aka our children, people we care about, our community. And even that they won't remember after a few years. So we have a choice to make. We can continue to make the choice to show up to everything at once, flustered and challenged and distracted and unsettled, or we can chip away, slowly but surely chip away at our thinking little by little, chip away at the way we talk, chip away at what we think is important, chip away at how we deal with friends, how we deal with enemies, how we deal with competitors, how we deal with financial challenges, how we deal with our parents, how we deal with our in-laws, how we deal with our children, how we deal with our rabbeim, how we deal with our learning, how we deal with our mitzvahs, how we deal with our kedushas einayim and kedushas peh, and how we deal with the things that we are supposed to deal with. We can decide how we want to show up. But it takes a radical change that if trying to do it all at once will never work. I am guilty of sin of that. I've mentioned it multiple times. I'm an addict. I'm in recovery. I am someone who ultimately wants to take on everything at once and wants it to be solved all at once. I have a real avodah of myself to learn these concepts and take it piece by piece, and it's very difficult for me. And it's not because I'm great, because most of the time I fall. And that's who I'm addressing. The guys like us, like me, that are trying and are falling, but ultimately the MS is the MS, and that little by little you can start to become more chill in the most healthy spiritual way, spiritually fit, if we are ready to slow down. But we started talking about laziness as the meter that we want to stay away from, and then he brought in the other extreme of doing. So it's the life of in-betweeners. It's the life of being a Benoni and being able to connect to that serenity of being in the middle. The brain has many parts, and when the soul manifests itself in the brain, as we said, a single task is what we can focus on. The same thing goes for the physical activities that the body has to accomplish. The parts of the body are stirred to carry out one mission, whatever physical act needs to be achieved. But a lethargic person's soul doesn't gather together much strength. It remains in a dormant state. A person who is actually sleeping still registers a certain amount of brain activity, enough to be able to dream about whatever his neshama envisions. Remember when this is written, we're not talking about where there was like science, and I mean, of course there was science, but this is coming from the pure mind of the Piazetzner. This is not coming from a scientist or someone who went to university, and he knows everything there needs to know because of Torah. Enough to be able to dream about whatever his soul envisions or about whatever happened to him throughout the day. A lethargic person, however, is in a sort of semi-sleep, even while he is actually awake. As Chazal say, he who sits idle is as though he is asleep. While he is not really asleep, his neshama is more alert than a sleeping person's soul. His soul is not entirely awake either. He is dozing, but not dozing awake. Awake but not awake. The parts of his brain and his body do not put forth any effort, nor do they join together to accomplish any specific task. How many times do we do things? Be like, did I just do that? Or what happened to today? What I'm talking about is taking, however old you are, listening to the class, is taking all of those years and chipping away at a reverse approach to everything we've been taught about how our day is supposed to look. Not what we're supposed to do, chas v'sholem, we have rabbanim for that, but how we're supposed to show up to do it. There's a very big difference of showing up at home for dinner and being there for real, as if it was your last day on earth, versus the way we typically show up for dinner, if you even have dinner with your family, because of life, not because of any other, negative reason. But whatever you do have, it's about showing up at the office and listening to the person that's well below you in your job and showing up fully for them and listening to them and empathizing with them because they had a hard day, or they're not going to be with their family for the holidays, or they didn't have enough money to put food on their table for the holidays, or whatever it is that you don't care about. Being able to show up and fully care in a way that affects those around you. Everything is energy, Rabbi say. Everything we put out is energy. Positive energy, negative energy. Healthy energy, unhealthy energy. Comedic energy, non-comedic energy. Sad energy, depressed energy. Lazy energy, achievable energy. Everything is energy. What you put out ultimately comes back. We're not going to get into that now, but what we are going to get into is the fact of showing up in a way that we are fully present in the moment and being able to get things done methodically, b'tznius, with an avodah that's light, that isn't intense, Because if I know I'm in a simulation anyways, then what is there to really get that mad about? Forget the fact that Einoid Milvado and everything that's happening in my day is being directed by our higher power. Everything. It's not the guy who took away the business. It's not the guy who was disrespectful to me. It's not the boss who wouldn't give me a raise. It's not the wife who won't stop nagging. It's all the Eibishter. But we have to be present enough to remember that, because it's been however many years you're alive on this earth, and that hasn't been the first thing on your mind. It hasn't been the first thing on my mind. Little by little, chipping away. The parts of his brain and body do not put forth any effort, nor do they join together to accomplish a specific task. His soul is not sufficiently alert to manifest itself and invigorate his physical body with vibrant life, the life force of a powerful person who strengthens himself and succeeds in his endeavors. He lacks energy and vitality. That is the definition of lethargy, one who is feeble and weak, not a weakness of the body, but of the neshama, that doesn't expend the effort to rouse itself and take hold of the tools of the body and mind and force them to work with precision. Lihis'amel ulidakte gam tziur udmus me'avodosoi ein loi af loi oineg v'loi simcha. Such a person is not left with a mental picture of what he might accomplish. He has no pleasure and he has no joy. So what am I talking about here? What does the desired state look like? The desired state look like is when you're walking, you say to yourself, I'm walking. When you see that person, you show up and you say, hi, I'm there for you. I'm here for you 100%. When you go to the next avoda, you're there for that avoda 100%. When you sit down at your desk and before you get started, you say, Shavisi Hashem lenegdi samid. Hashem, I'm putting you before me always today. I'm thinking about you as much as I possibly can. I'm going to keep talking to you throughout my day. And I'm just going to do check-ins. Thank you, Hashem, for an unbelievable morning. Thank you for that call that went well. Hashem, didn't expect that challenge to come, but that's not for me to worry about. I'm going to handle it the best way I can. Give me the strength to do so. Hashem, before I make the bracha, I just want to thank you for allowing me to have the money in order to have the food that I'm eating. Because one thing, Rabbi say, sidebar, one thing that we don't take enough focus and inventory on is the fact that in all of our lives, every single person here I'm talking to, at any given moment, 99% of their life, they have never felt the pain of not having food, clothing, or shelter that I know of. And if I'm speaking for somebody else, or you've been through that, you're inspiring me. But for most of us, 99% of the time, that has never been the concern. Doesn't mean we grew up with money, doesn't mean we were wealthy, doesn't mean we got whatever we wanted, doesn't mean we're wealthy now, doesn't mean any of that. But we never had that to deal with. And if this whole thing is a simulation, and Hashem is literally in the moment showing up for us, because he's done that 99% of the time. But we live in an unconscious, unfocused, distracted life. So very quickly that gets forgotten. And I put worry in my head of what's going to happen in the future. Or I should say, I put anxiety in my head of what's going to happen in the future. And I regret or I mourn what's happened in the past. Versus showing up. How many times a day has Avishai Lev tried to consistently stay in practice of Hashem, in this moment at 8:27, I get to learn your holy Torah in my comfortable office with people that I know, with food in my stomach from dinner, with a car in the driveway that is a nice car, with parnasa coming in some capacity, with gum that I have to chew and a squishy ball I have to squish, and all the different things in my life. I have it set up perfectly right now. But yet, this freaking email. Or why no one listens to me here? Or why didn't I have a better month financially? Or what's going on with my business? Or, ultimately, why is it hard for me, but this guy gets it? Or why is the weather so freaking cold? Or why can't I travel more? Or why can't I? We constantly fall out of presence. But if we were present, and if we lived present, back to the desired state, that he's talking about, not Avishai Lev, that the Piazetzer is talking about, in any given moment we live in this place of grace and bliss. Couldn't be any better. We're not starving African children. We're not running through a Holocaust. We're not in a war zone. We're not being bombed in Eretz Yisrael, hiding in bomb shelters. We're not dealing with October 7th tragedies. We're not dealing with open anti-Semitism, even though the media wants to make us think that the world's coming to an end. We work, we wear our kippahs, we go to the mall, we buy stuff, we eat good food, we go out to eat. We've never had more luxury in our entire lives. We have a beautiful shul. We have great friends. We have what? For the journey that we're on for a temporary bus stop, does it get any better? So that's the avoda. Stop running. Stop checking, stop pinging, stop connecting, stop all of that. Be present, show up fully, but realize that it's going to take a tremendous amount of avoda and a tremendous amount of dedication where this becomes the main thing. We all are told the main thing is Torah, the main thing is mitzvahs, 100%. But you got to be able to show up in a healthy way to do those things. And for so many, that's the chasm that exists. I know what I'm supposed to be doing, yet at the same time, I'm here. And as I continue to try to get there, there's all this instability in between. That's where we have to focus. If we get the stability right, then instead of constantly going like this, you're able to start going like this. And that's ultimately where we want to be able to get to through Torah and through the guidance of, right now, Chovas Hatalmidim and the Piazetzer. Okay, Rabbi Say.